What's up, Nolan? How you doing?
Oh man, how are you?
I'm good, bro.
Get in. Does this
I'm
mean I
good.
made it? I'm on your podcast. I made it in life, huh?
You know, yeah, you made it, bro.
Good. I
You-
can I can just check out now. This is
I,
my final destination.
it took us 3 times to get this scheduled. I got sick the first time we were supposed to get it scheduled, got
hmm
sick. I remember texting you at like 6 in the morning. I was like, dude, not happening today. I got the worst migraine ever. Second time you decided no, and then now here we are the third time. So let's do this. So as the listeners will know by our conversation, we do know each other. I always like the listeners to know like kind of where we're coming from. They can probably tell in this conversation as we have it that we are friends. Nolan and I, we text probably, I mean, we're probably in 3 different group texts on any given day that goes back and forth. And what I've so enjoyed since meeting you is just being in those texts. There's some days, where you're super busy and you just like, can't keep up with the group text, but
hmm
they're always motivating because, you're so much younger than me. And I see in these group texts, I see some of you young gunners and I'm like, dang, these guys are like literally coming, like they're coming. You can see that whole, like, if you get complacent in this business, there's a new group of people that are coming up and they're trying to just go be gritty and get that work. So if like realtors get lazy, there's someone out there like a Nolan who's just getting ready to take your listing, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
And like those just keep me so accountable. Like being involved in those group texts every day, it just
100%.
reminds me every day, like, hey, we got to get after it. When we're self-employed, sometimes we can think like, no one's out there watching us, no boss. But so that's what I love about those texts. But dude, introduce yourself as far as you know who you are, and then I always like to start with why did you get into real estate? And so let's just start there.
Yeah, so I've been in real estate for let's say 4 or 5 years now. I've been around it. When people ask me how long I've been in real estate, I say since 95 when I was born, because my dad's been a broker agent my entire life. I think he's been in the business like 37 years or something like that, and I'm only 27. So I've been around it my whole life. It was never the goal to get into it. I was big into like physical therapy. I was in school for kinesiology. I wanted to be a physical therapist. And I was always dabbling in as many jobs as I could until I could figure out what I really like. Like I worked at a marketing company. I worked at a custom pool building company up in Desert Mountain. Me and my buddies were hand digging pools. And it's like I want to do as many things as I can until I find that when it clicks. And I thought physical therapy was the answer. And I remember one summer, like it was a summer off, I went to go see the counselor to figure out my next schedule. And she's like, yeah, you're and keep in mind, I was at a community college paying for all my own classes. Like I didn't have a scholarship. My parents didn't give me any money for college, which I'm thankful for. And so when I found out I had another 4 years left, I hate school, by the way. 4 years left, and then you have to do you have to do, what do you call it? Like internship. And then you could probably get into PT school. And then from there you can maybe get a six-figure job. And I'm like, I'm gonna be in like my late 20s by then. I'm like, this is just it's just taking the fire out of my flame, or whatever the saying is.
Yep.
And so that summer, my dad's like, hey, get your license because he just moved back from Florida. He moved to Michigan because my grandpa got sick. He passed away. They tried to move to Florida to retire. It's a vacation spot. I didn't like it. He came back here and he's like, I'm gonna get back into building my business. And he's like, get your license. We can just have fun for the summer and see how you like it. And this was like 2019, 2020. So right before the market started picking up. So I got my license. We started killing it together. We were doing all FISBOs. I was calling FISBOs all day. We'd set listing appointments, and then he would kind of get the listing, and then I would do the transaction. So I learned a lot really quickly. I'd say about 2 months in is when we saw Greg Haig's 72 sold commercial, like one of his first ones on like a football game one night. And I'm like, who's that? Like, what is 72 sold? And he's like, it's funny. I actually know Greg really well. Like, he was supposed to buy my company in '08. He's a mastermind, like one of the best geniuses I know. I'll text him right now and see if we can meet up with him and see what it's all about. And like, while we're seeing the commercial, you text Greg Haig. Within like 5 minutes, Greg responds and says, come in tomorrow. I'll tell you all about it. And like, I don't even know the difference between a listing agent and a buyer's agent at this point. Like, I'm brand new. I don't know what a Finzer is. So I'm kind of nervous. I'm like, we're about to go meet with this CEO of a huge company. And like, and he had a big presence in PV at the time. So we sat down and he gave us the whole spiel. It sounded great, kind of gave us he made us a proposal to do a joint venture because it was my dad's brokerage. So we sat down that night and we're like, hey, do we keep doing what we're doing, just me and him, and we're doing decent, but like we're so flexible on time, or do we just go all in with this company for 6 months and see how it works? So that's the decision we made. And the rest was history. We were there for about 3 years. I did a couple hundred transactions. I made really good money. I learned everything I needed to learn. So Greg's like one of the best mentors I've had. My dad taught me everything. And then after the 3 years, I knew it was time to spread my wings, and that's kind of when I left. And now
So
and now you know,
so you being over at a company like that that provides you so many leads, dude, what was that like? Because that 2 year run from like 2020
mhm.
to 2022 was just wild. I
Yeah,
mean, I remember in my office, it was just, I mean, it was order taking. It was you couldn't go fast enough. You almost would go to bed at night and know that you left money on the table, but you just needed to go to sleep, wake up and run and do it again. But that's an interesting era where we went through. And so like what did that feel like for you? Because you were how many transactions had you did before you entered into that like fast pace?
like five.
Okay, so you
Yeah,
kind of that's all you knew.
that's all I knew. I wasn't used to doing multiple deals a month. It was like one a month, and you would get your check and go on to the next one. And it turned into three a week overnight. And there's pros and cons. I mean, at the time, I didn't know what to expect because this is all I knew.
Mhm.
So it was awesome. And like me and my dad, there were so many growing pains because I was like, because you do when you're at a company like that, you do give up a big split, even though they're handing you businesses. But the way you look at it is like you're leaving money on the table. It's a hard concept to grasp, especially when you're brand new to a company.
Mhm.
So I was going through those growing pains. I was like, are we working too hard for a little bit of money? And he explained to me like the benefit of leads and having that fuel and all of that. So there was definitely pros and cons. I'd say the biggest pro is like I just was able to do so many transactions to now where it's nothing I haven't seen. Like I've been on 1,000, at least 4-digit listing appointments, but I never built my database. I wasn't focusing on helping my friends. I wasn't focusing on helping my families or meeting people at the store or helping people in my community because I knew I had 10 leads from our commercials that needed help. And I could go sell those 10 houses that month and make way above the income that my goal was. So that was the downfall, but I would never I don't regret it at all because I learned so much. Like it was funny, Greg used to always mess around with me and be like, you've learned 10 years of real estate in like 2 years. And
He's right, dude.
can't
You
put
did.
yeah, you can't put
I
value
know a
into it.
lot of you that got out of that who'd only like almost started at that company, and it's true, dude. Like some of you guys and what you did in those 2 years. I remember like my career. I've been doing this for 17, almost 18 years, and you guys probably pulled off like in 2 years what I pulled off in like eight.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like your reps were just there. Like you guys were going on reps on listing appointments like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's cool that you guys gathered all that knowledge. It was kind of like probably like the college of real estate for you.
Yeah.
What do you wish you would have did? Because cool company, you got like a lot of leads, and what do you wish you would have did differently while working there and going through that fast paced market?
Well, it's a weird answer because my goals might be different than most, but the way I view business and this industry is kind of the same way you do. Like I love doing transactions, I love making the sales and the income and all that, but I like trying to figure out how to turn it into more of a business. I like that aspect of like hiring people, figuring out where I can leverage my time, figuring out how I can go on vacation and not be stressing, figuring out like all those moving parts and not just doing transactions. And I was like looking at certain agents, not just at that brokerage, but at different brokerages. And I'm like, yeah, this guy's making a crazy amount of money, but he's miserable. He's still dialing and cold calling every day. He's still door knocking every day. I'm like, I'm trying to look in the future. I've always been proactive. Like, where do I want to be 5 to 10 years from now? And the leads are amazing, but I wasn't doing anything to like sustain them. Like I said, I sold probably 300 homes. the only referrals I get from those is from people who loved me so much. So I'm lucky, but I don't do anything to follow up, which people, they cringe when they hear that. I didn't even have a CRM where I was sending people updates or like staying in touch with them. Like my only follow up was people that I would think of off the top of my mind, and then I would just text them that day, or they're reaching out to me. So I didn't learn any of that aspect because we were just so busy doing transactions. So I think the thing I regret is if I would have been doing what I'm doing now at that level, if it's even possible with doing that many transactions, like I would be 5 years ahead right now.
Yeah, the question always is like, really could have you, because it's like we were so busy during that era. We can look back now and say all the things we wish we would have did, but like when you're going all day long and getting off at 7 or 8 p.m. and then you just like, want to watch something on TV for like 30 minutes, go to bed, and then start over again. It's really hard. I think the only people that could have probably did it differently is if you had like employees who were trying to help you execute missions while you were out selling properties. Um, and so, give yourself props, bro. Like
Yeah.
you probably did that the best way you could during that era.
Yeah.
Because you capitalized off that era, and then you wake up, and when you wake up and you start thinking about it, we can always look back in Monday Morning Quarterback. And I was reading this book 10X. Kevin Kaufman and Fred Weaver, our mutual friends, sent me that book, and it talks about gaps and gains, and it
Mm-hmm.
talks about how you'll look at certain parts of your life, and you'll kind of look at the what did I not do, and then you start forgetting about all the things that you really accomplished. So
Yeah.
you'll look back on this era of 2 or 3 years, and as you're sitting Monday morning quarterbacking, it's always nitpicking, like, well, I didn't do that, and I didn't do that. And it talks about how the people who stay in the zone and they just appreciate that moment, that they just did the best that they could with that moment. Not saying you don't self-reflect, but people who are personally productive and on a mission, they're always usually nitpicking themselves. And it's like, hey, stop doing that. Like if you were doing the best you could during that era, now just like more look forward and know that another one of those markets is going to come one day,
Mm-hmm.
and just make sure like you capitalize off it even better because you're more mature as a business owner. So now that you don't have that style of business anymore where you're just being thrown leads, what does business look like for you now? Like how are you getting business? Because there's so many agents that they just get leads from their team and they're on a split. And so now you're out there on your own. No one's giving you leads. So what's that look like for you?
Well, it's cool because I know what I did wrong. Like what going back to what you just said, like I've always been a perfectionist, and like I always look at what could I be doing more to get more money or better results or better service. And I was always beating myself up because I was working with the best of the best. Like my dad has been doing this for so long. He's just got it all dialed in. I'd be like, how do I get to that level faster? And he would sit me down and be like, hey man, you've been in the business 3 years. Like I got 30 extra years on you. Like appreciate what you're doing. Like me and you always talk about this, like pat yourself on the back and just slowly get better. And that's kind of what's changed the most recently is like my mindset is not be like I was got to the point where I was getting shingles. I was so stressed out. People were looking at me like this guy's killing it. He's making my dream money. He's buying houses with his wife, getting married. I'm like, in the inside, I was a mess. Like I wanted to do better. I wanted to make more. And I'm like, I just went into it too fast. So now I've dialed it back. I figured out how to be more systemized, how to create better experiences for the clients, which is way more fulfilling. So I've noticed like if you don't have the fulfillment and like the passion every day in this industry, you can get burned out so fast. I think that's any industry. Now starting to get burned out because you don't know where you're going. You don't have a game plan. And now I have that game plan of like now I'm focusing on my referrals, my past clients who are the people that trust me and like me, and they all have people they can refer to me and I can help them. So now that's what I'm doing. I haven't paid for a lead or gotten a lead from 72 sold in over a year. It's all been referral based. Like I just this week started PPC leads because I want to start bringing on team members, and I want the overhead to be a little bit higher and the income to be higher where I can turn it into more leverage in a business. But I've just been focusing on just my referrals and building relationships. And now that I'm working for myself and don't have to give a portion to a company, I'm making, let's say, the same amount of money, but my peace of mind and the fulfillment has done 10x.
What is just a quick math, what is like the ratio of working for a company like that versus now you on your own? Like, what's the ratio of deals where you make the same income? Why I asked that is because I was talking to an agent recently who just moved over from a team
Hmm.
and they feel slower, right? They
Hmm.
feel slower, but I'm
100%.
like, hey, if you feel slower and you're making more money at the end of the month,
Yeah.
like game on. Like what, like in what world is the goal? Like I'm being serious when I'm like, in what world is the goal? Like, hey, I want to wake up and just be busy all day. So
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe like if you've moved over from a company and now it's like you don't have the brokerage split and you don't have the team leader split, like you can actually be slower in the month, like feel slower, and you're not running around all the time. And you're actually, but when you look at the spreadsheet, you're like, whoa, I'm making like just as much money or more. It's
Hmm.
kind of a weird shift to go through because we're so addicted to like the leads. We're so addicted to the deal. And some people can be like, oh, I made 50 million or I sold 50 million in volume last year.
Hmm.
And and the question is like, well, like what tier were you in the team, with those numbers? Like, was it 50, 50 this, and then you get 20 of this, and you look at it, you're like, okay, well, yeah, you closed 50 million in volume, but you definitely didn't make like what most realtors make 50 million in pay. What does that ratio look like from then to now?
Yeah, I think there's two answers to it, and because I always look at ROI, and I look at ROI as far as peace of mind too. So what most agents I think look at is, hey, I can go to a company with a big split, but I don't have to spend any time looking for new business.
Okay.
So they're looking at it like that, like I'm just getting handed business, and that's kind of how I looked at it. And it's like but and also if you go to a company where you're getting 100% of your commission, but you have to go find your own business, how much time are you actually spending going to get all that business?
Okay.
So it's a medium. Like if you go somewhere where you can figure out those systems where it comes in, like you have it perfectly set up where your referrals, you're going to get an X amount of referrals every year because your systems are so dialed. Anything you do on top of that is just a bonus. You're not paying for leads every year and then just moving on to the next leads. And that's kind of like where I think people are either on this side or they're on this side. I got to figure out how to be in the middle, which is what you've perfected, you and your team. And I'm like, if I can get leads coming in that I pay for and just go after new business just a little bit, but knowing that my systems are so set up that I get automatic referrals, I'm at the point now where I can sell a quarter. I think it's even less. I think it's like 22% of what the volume I was doing when I was at a full lead company and make the same amount of income. Which I'm not saying that in like a braggadocious way. I'm just saying like now that gives me more peace of mind to make the experience better for clients. I can give them more attention. I can focus on building my business more because like you don't understand how much brain power that takes away from you wanting to make your business better. If you're
Yeah.
doing 10 transactions and you're gassed, like you barely want to wake up in the morning and even start the next day. You just want to break. At this point, I go on a vacation, I'm kind of bummed.
Dude, I know what you mean, man. Like it gets that is hard. It's very hard. I talk to some agents and they'll tell me like, "Hey, I couldn't imagine doing X amount of transactions,"
Mhm.
and I always say it, and I don't say it in a rude way. It's you can't imagine that many transactions with the structure that you have,
Yeah.
because if you're, what I mean, if someone's already like wore out at 3 or 4 a month, and they're like, "Well, man, I want to get 8 a month." Well, with their current structure, they're looking at like, "Well, I'm already wore out doing 3, so if I do 8, I would just be more wore out," and
Mhm.
it's coming into that conversation now of no, like there's a lot of there's things in the transaction that are making you wore out, right? There's things that give you energy in a transaction, there's things that wear you out. And it's trying to find out as the person who's got to be like the visionary of the company and have the motivation every day to go build. They've got to make sure they stay in like flow state every day and make sure they find those things that keep feeding them energy. And then they've got to pass off these things that are like, hey, that's very hard or draining or just tedious. And tedious can be draining. So um,
Yeah. I think one thing you said to me last week is like anxiety and stress is caused from like not being prepared.
yeah,
It's not the actual workload. It's just you don't know how it's gonna go and you're just freaking out about the outcome and all of that because it's not systemized and there's no process there.
yeah. So what do your systems look like now? I know as we talk, I've helped you build some of them, but just for the listeners, they don't know what that is. So like, what are the systems that you've been building over the last few months now knowing that like, hey, you've got to go out and fish for yourself?
Yeah, to give a little background, like I did those like 300 transactions when I was at my last brokerage, and I never had my own CRM. I know I had the company CRM, but nothing like my own database, nothing. And then I left that to go build a team with a partner. That didn't work out, so that's when I ended up here. Which everything happens for a reason. That's actually a better result for me. So basically, I'm in the rebuilding phase, which is weird because I feel like a rookie agent again, but I have all the reps. So I literally bought my CRM a couple months ago, started loading into it. I've just been going hard. I'm getting all of my like top clients in there, I send out a letter, like a referral letter, thank you letters. I send out some marketing material, just getting that all dialed in. I'm hiring an assistant here soon that's going to be more on the back end so I can focus more on the infield stuff. But yeah, just staying in touch, like the Bowers Blitz that you teach to all these agents, like that's money that's already working great for me. And then I have my leads that I pay for; those are all systemized, so where the follow ups there and all of that. And there's like I think there's 5 different categories in real estate, like buyers who are interested, sellers who are interested, and then when either one of those go under contract, and then after a closing. So there's processes with all 5 of those, and if I'm working on getting all 5 of those dialed in, those are the agents who can pretty much take the year off, every year and still get a handful of families that they help. So that's the goal.
Yeah, man, it's treating when you look at your CRM or your database as an asset, the
Mm-hmm.
game changes. When you truly look at it like an asset. Now, if somebody has like 20,000 internet leads in there, don't get me wrong, it's an asset, but assets can have different ROIs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you can have different assets in life and they have different ROIs. So in my CRM, I look at it as if like these internet leads have they're a certain asset class and they spit off a certain ROI. Got to pay this much money. They come into my system. We got to put some human energy into it to turn that into a commission. And so then we get an ROI. With the friends, family, and past clients, that's an asset, right? There's a different ROI on that. If someone can just figure out how to properly communicate with those people in a way where you're having fun, you're also telling them what you do, and you systematize it, they can spit you off a pretty decent amount of business every single year. And that's the thing though, it's people overthink it. They're like, I don't want to send them a letter asking for referrals.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, how would you ever get any referrals? So it's
Yeah.
like you've got to figure out how to like, hey, this is what I would love from you, and then go out and do some fun events and give some giveaways. But that's an asset that can spit you off income every single year, and it turns into a fun sport where then you're trying to figure out how to like feed it. So I know, like, let's have that conversation. How have you been feeding your CRM now? Because I know a lot of people sit around and maybe they one time put people in their database. They sit down one time when they first start real estate and they put 100 people in, but then they forget the importance of how do I continually add people to this. So how has that been working for you since you've got a CRM maybe a month ago?
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
love it.
How
It's
many people do
funny.
you have in your CRM? Because you just started like a month ago, I believe, right?
270 now, I think. Yeah.
270.
I've,
Okay.
I've definitely gone through my contact list and deleted some people and followed up with some people that I forgot about, which I felt bad about. But yeah, I got like my top 270 people in there. Obviously, some are more important to me than others, but it's funny because I'm kind of going backwards. Because you think about it, when people get into this business, they build their CRM, they start sending out all their marketing, and then they try to specialize how to get it to become a better agent. I've already gotten like I know
Mm.
I've seen it all, so I can provide all this value. And I think because I'm talking to like newer agents, and they're like, hey, I'm scared to reach out because I don't even really know this industry. And I like think to myself, I'm like, I know this industry like the back of my hand. Like I could sell a $6 million house, I could sell a $200,000 house, and I've been on thousands of appointments. Like nothing phases me. I train other agents, yet I'm not even reaching out asking for business or providing value. So now I just go through my CRM and like, how can I help this person? Like a friend of mine, I know she wanted to buy an investment property, and when she DM'd me on Instagram that she was interested, I immediately found one, or we both found one, and I'm like, this is a home run for you. I know you. Broke it down to her. I'm like, if we can get it for this price, this amount, then it's a total home run. And they already built that trust because I know I've done so many transactions, and I probably closed a deal 10 times faster than I would have if I was a brand new agent.
Yeah.
So that's the fun part.
So how'd you pick these like 300 people that you put in your CRM? What thought process did you go through?
Some of them are, a lot of them are my old listings that I sold,
Okay.
but the thing with listings is people move out of state. So I do still put them in my CRM, but they're not the best source because they've just moved on, you know. So I've been trying to start reaching out to maybe some of those buyers that I did represent that bought those listings. But I was born and raised in Scottsdale, so I have a pretty big sphere. I worked in a couple of restaurants in North Scottsdale growing up, so I met a bunch of regulars doing that. And just, I mean, I went to elementary school, college, high school up here. So it's just going back and like following up with old connections that I had.
That's cool. Yeah, just keep feeding that thing, man. It can turn into a sport. So, just a quick story. Um I was at Cold Beer and Cheeseburger the other day eating just sitting at the bar, and this guy, I was busy, busy, so sitting really close to this guy, and he just starts chatting with me. And I'm not normally a just chatter. That's not
Yeah.
normally who I am. I'm more of a thinker. I'll sit there for an hour next to somebody and not say a word.
Yeah.
And he starts chatting with me, and then finally he's like, "Hey, what do you do?" And I was like, "I sell real estate." And he's like, "Oh, like, what do you think about doing some like?" He was asking about like investment properties, and I was like, "Hey, I've got 20, so like I obviously am a huge fan of them." And we started going down this conversation, like, "Oh, I got two here in Arizona, and then my primary." And it was so cool because but think this through. Like, as I'm having this conversation, I'm already thinking in my head, and some may say this is wrong. That's fine. That's fair. But like, as we're having this conversation, I'm thinking, if I'm going to have this conversation, I only want to have conversations in life if I'm going to like continue them.
Hmm.
So I'm sitting there in the conversation, and I was like, "Hey, let me ask you a question. Like, on a few of your rental properties, like, what's the one thing you need, like, that I could help out with?"
Hmm.
Value. And he's like, "Dude, I need my pool like resurfaced at one." He's like, "It's paid off. Don't have anybody in it right now because it needs resurfaced.
Yeah.
And I'm not even renting it out right now because I don't even know. Like, I'm busy. I own an IT company." I said, "Hey, dude, give me your number. I got your guy. He did mine. Send him over." So I got his number.
Yeah.
And then so I got his number. I was
Um,
like, "Hey, dude, there it is." And he's like, "Oh man, thank you so much. I so appreciate it." And then talk for a little bit longer. And then, but the next day, I have kind of a thing where I try to add a contact into my system. It's a goal. So when I was adding someone into my system the next day, I was thinking, like, who can I add? I was like,
yeah.
"Oh, Rob." And so
Hmm.
I looked him up. I looked him up on the on our tax records and found his name. He told me what subdivision he lived in.
Talker.
Put him in. And then, dude, there it is. Like, game on. It's now the note card already went out. It was like, "Hey, Rob, it was really nice meeting you at Cold Beer and Cheeseburger. Nice talking with you about your investment properties. Great decisions you made. Keep those things forever. Reach out to me if you need any other vendors on any of your rental properties. Hope that pool gets done soon. Empty houses aren't smart investments. Your
Yeah.
friend Chris." And then that blitz goes, and that's all pretty much done by my assistant. And I look at that and I joke because when I came home, I was so excited. I was telling my wife Brittany, I'm like, "There's there's gonna be next year," and this is a make believe story in my head. I'm like, "Next year, dude's calling me. I'll be selling one of his houses from just sitting there and talking to him, and he's getting the mailers now." And how I know that is because I'm going to a final walkthrough today of a dude I met at Mellow Mushroom 4 months ago and did the same thing and helped him sell his house and buy. I made like $42,000 just because I was having the conversation with the dude, and all I said was, "What's your Facebook?" Because I know his age.
Yeah.
Never even got his address, anything. And like, he hit me up on Facebook and was like, "Hey, I need to sell my house." He said, "Obviously you sell real estate." Meaning, I was like, obviously I'm probably super annoying on there that I sell real estate. I don't care. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that's the kind of stories where I want you to carry on with that and just think like, don't ever even think through adding someone to the database, because as we add people, we start thinking all of a sudden our emotions get involved and we're like, "Is he going to think this is weird?"
Yeah.
And what if, well, if I send him another mailer, is he going to think I'm salesy? And I just take all the emotion out of it. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I genuinely don't care. Like, if
I love
you don't want it, great. If you thought I was salesy, cool, I am. If you thought like this guy's a weirdo, cool. So it's just like I take all the emotion out of it. I'm like, I don't actually have no care what your thoughts are on this process because it just works. And I know that I'm providing value because I know that guy's going to hit me up. I'm going to help him out. So
I love
Anyways,
that.
man, I
The,
want to talk about that as far as your CRM because I want you to keep adding to that thing.
Oh yeah, and one of the best things that I've learned from my dad is he's always been like solutions provided. I think you're the same way. It's not like when people hear this, they think like, oh, we just want to start new conversations so we can get new commissions. Like agents who have that commission breath and they're thinking, I just need another sale, people can smell that. But like with the amount of like experience we have and like the solutions that we want to provide, like everyone I talk to, it's like, how can I help this person out? And
Yeah,
people can feel that. And it's like always think like, what's the solution for this person? Like the guy resurfacing his pool. You could easily like try to talk him into why the market might crash soon
yeah,
or why he needs to capitalize on his equity right now. Like that's just so cheesy to me. It's like, hey, let's provide as much solutions as we can, show that we're professional. Like one of my biggest things from doing that I've seen is I've sold 28 owner agent homes. So licensed agents. I've met with them. They called us to meet with them and we just provided solutions. You find what their pain point is. Everybody wants the most amount of money. That's all they care about. The least amount of time with the least amount of headaches.
yep,
So, and if there's some other little thing, we can touch on that. But it's like if we can make it easy for them, put as much money in their pocket and just help them rather than like, hey, I'm the top agent. I'm top 1%. This is how many, they don't care about that stuff. Like provide solutions like, oh, maybe they're going through a divorce. Maybe they're going through a foreclosure. How can we help you out? That's where I've really built my business because like that's where you can build the trust. And when you build trust with somebody, obviously you have to like show that you can provide results because if you put somebody into a house that they hate, they're not going to give you referrals ever. So if you can provide results, give them peace of mind and all that, because it's a stressful sale. I mean, it's their biggest asset of their
yeah.
life, you know? So if you can just provide as many solutions as you can, keep the stress as low as possible. I mean, I've been doing that since I've been serving tables and that helped me get bigger tips then too. Just make the experience great. And the more people I can meet and find solutions for, just put them in the database.
How is your listing changed? Like your actual like listing presentation? If someone hits you up right now and wants to talk about selling their house, do you have a formal presentation that you go through, or are you just shooting from the hip on just like, here's what's up?
I mean, I don't want to say I'm shooting from the hip. Like I don't. It's funny because me and my dad talk about this too. Like we never bring in anything to
I
these appointments. We
okay.
we
I
don't. I
bring
think you're
very
the same
little so
way.
I can understand it.
Yeah, you're the same way. I think, right? Yeah. So we don't bring the packets. I mean, we will have it ready in case somebody's like super analytical and needs to see stats and stuff. But like, I'd say 95% of people, we don't even have to break that out. And it's just listening, man. Like people can tell the difference between a good and a bad agent, even if they've never sold a home.
Yeah.
You just listen and they can tell you have experience because I always try to relate it to somebody who we just helped in their same shoes. But like I said, those three things is all they focus on. So I'm like, how can we get the top dollar for you in the least amount of time without you having to get a hernia or a brain tumor from stress?
Yeah, for
I just
real.
break down the whole strategy and I'm like, hey, there's going to be companies that are cheaper. There's going to be companies who can buy your house and it takes a day, less commission. But if you want the top results and the least amount of headaches, like here's my track record. And usually I could build the trust by then. I usually just let them talk and figure
Yeah.
out where I can plug
Yeah,
in.
so you're not going through like a big formal presentation.
If I have to, like those people that are super logical and they got their list of questions, I'll change it a little bit for there. But I just try to treat it like it's my family member or my friend. Like,
Yeah.
hey, I know you're going through a lot. You're probably interviewing a bunch of agents. This is what we can do for you. This is what we've done for hundreds and hundreds of families.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't like, yeah, it's just,
I,
and
you
we've had
know,
great success
I
with that.
I see it as a plus. I just went to a listing recently and he had a few larger packets from realtors on his kitchen table. It was like a 1.1 million in carefree and it was an internet lead. And I remember I called him and he's like, "Oh no, I'm good. I just flew in from California. I got to sell my mom's property and I'm leaving tomorrow."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what do you mean you're good?" He's like, "I already interviewed a few agents this weekend." And I was like, "All right, well, I'm probably going to be over there in like the next 3 hours." Cause I mean, you need to talk to probably one of the better ones, right? Or the best. And he's
Yeah.
like, "All right, come over." And it was just so simple, like how I'm sitting and looking at these thick packets, like thick. And I do have a little one, right? But it's more about marketing of me. I just like
Yeah.
it's more of when I leave behind. So they're like,
Yeah.
oh, I
Like
can see
that.
his I'd rather my cells and stuff speak for themselves on a few little infographics. And we're chatting, and I could, at the end of it, I'm like, hey, what questions do you have? And at the end of it, you could just tell he's like, man, like you really got this dialed down, don't you?
Mhm.
And I just looked at him, I was like, dude, I've been like back of my hand, don't need to bring stuff, have your house sold. Like this is like I woke up for this. Like I didn't even know you until 2 hours ago. Like I woke up to meet you. This is what I do. And it's just funny because you see these people that need like all this info, like some realtors that think like they need all this formal presentation. And maybe you do, I think, when you're newer, but like
Yeah.
it can just be like such a casual conversation with people. I'm like, what are you trying to accomplish? Where are you trying to go? Why are
Yeah.
we doing this? Do you want to keep it? Would it be better to keep it?
Mhm.
All these just self-discovery questions that are about them and really less about us as the realtor. So that's interesting that you do it that way. I've told my wife 2 months ago, I was like, Nolan's, because I've only known you for probably 7, 8 months, maybe a little longer, but not that long. I told my wife, I was like, Nolan's one of the first people that I've met that just I feel I'm like you beat to my drum. Like it's
Yeah.
just we have a lot of the same tendencies. That's why I think we can freestyle a lot in the day on like what we're going through.
Yeah.
So I figured that's how your listing presentation would be.
I
What
learned a lot from 72 sold. Like all those appointments with 72 sold. Like I just learned that people just they don't really like the dog and pony show.
mm-mm.
I'll even bring it up. I'm not gonna like bash anybody and be unethical, but I'm like, hey, I'm not one of those agents who's gonna tell you I can put your house on Facebook and Instagram. I'm like, I'm gonna tell you what works. I'm gonna tell you how much you're gonna walk away with and the realistic expectations. Like, I don't even know what your house is worth. I go, a house is worth what a buyer is willing to pay. I go, an agent that comes in here and says your house is worth this, not a dollar more. I'm like, you know what a comp is? I go, if every house was praised right below the comps or at the comps, there would never be appreciation.
Yeah.
Because so I have those conversations. I kind of get away from the whole interview process and I just try to change their mindset into like, how can we maximize this? I kind of go into it as like, it's not a, hey, are you going to pick me or somebody else? It's like, hey, you're picking me, but what strategy are we going to take?
Mm-hmm.
We can
Cool.
follow my strategy or we can follow yours if you want to start higher, but here's the risk. I try to be proactive and cover all those bases up front. So that
It's
that's
in, it's
take.
interesting that you took that approach because it's kind of how I took the approach too. Because I always looked at the listing consultation as like as I've trained many agents, I feel like they go into that listing consultation with such fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't because I don't feel I have no, like they're coming in because they're like, I've got to know exactly what it's worth. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't walk into somebody's house that day and see it and just be like, and sit at their table and be like, it's worth this. So just
Mm-hmm.
like getting all that out, like figuring out how to walk through this house and charismatically talk to somebody
Mm-hmm.
and get them to understand that you're like, hey, I was just coming here to like meet you, ask
Mm-hmm.
you some questions, and look at your house.
Yeah.
Kind of getting that all off your like back of like, it wasn't to come in here and if I pick the right number, you hire me.
Mm-hmm.
It was to come here and kind of interview you, see what's up, let me see your house,
Yeah.
and like let's have a conversation that I'm probably when I leave gonna follow back up with you, might ask you some more questions about your house, and then we'll start coming up with pricing. But
Yeah.
I think it helps out when people go in there with like not the expectations that they have to like know exactly what the price is before they walk into the house. I'm like, you've never. Some people like try to figure that out before they go. I'm like, you've never seen their house. Like,
Yeah.
how would you be able to go in there? That's so much pressure you're putting on your shoulders. Like, get that off your shoulders. So, what are you? You mentioned some properties, investment properties. What's that look like for you, man?
Yeah, I mean, it's a love hate. I've bought five in my life. I only have two right now. Well, two of them were fix and flips, so my plan was to sell those already. I did those with my dad. Bought one with my wife that was an Airbnb in Tempe when we were really young, when we were first starting out. We remodeled it. We're making great money. The next door neighbor ended up being a complete psychopath, like jumping over our walls, smashing our light bulbs. She was flipping off every Airbnb tenant,
Oh
saying
no.
racial slurs, sending me out. This was when I was super busy too, sending me paragraphs and paragraphs, like saying she's a lawyer and gonna come after me, even though I knew she wasn't. So Nicole has been always my like kind of my property manager. She like maintains our Airbnbs and our rentals. So when she came to me, I think this was when we were engaged. We weren't even married yet. And she's like, I just can't do it. And this was like the week COVID hit too. And she's like, we either rent this out long term or like move in because we were living in a condo at the time and we only had the one puppy, Tucker. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to live in Tempe because we're all the way up north right now. That's kind of where I work. So when COVID hit, like I remember I had two open houses and not one person showed up. So I'm like, this market's crashing. I go, let's take our 100 grand equity or whatever we had and call it a win. Now I look back and I'm like, the house is worth another 200 grand more, but how many headaches did we save? I guess is the only thing I tell myself. But yeah, right now we did buy our one of our, I guess, dream homes for our 20s in Greyhawk. We love Greyhawk. Remodeled that, and then the condo we were in Kierland, we Airbnb that.
Cool.
It's like a vacation rental short term, so we probably triple our mortgage every month. So it's a good ROI.
And you're only 27, 28?
27, almost 28 next week.
Okay, cool, man.
Yeah.
I like how you said your dream house for your 20s.
Yeah,
Like
I mean,
you
I would
put some
like to
like
say
you put some stipulations on this. You're like, this is my dream house for my 20s. I've never actually heard that said. I really like
I
that it
was
puts
gonna say
your
dream home, but then I'm like, I gotta set my goals a little higher, I guess, because I'm already in
or
it.
not, dude.
Yeah.
There's something to be said. I'm glad you said that because there's something to be said, man, about just having peace with what you have. I feel like we live in a culture, and I don't want to get on a high horse too much, but I feel like we're in
Yeah.
this culture where we're always like, we've got to go get nicer material things. We've got to go get a bigger house. We got to live in the nicer neighborhood.
Yeah.
And, that can be so like unpeaceful, like always. And I'm not saying I don't want nicer things and I'm not saying I don't want sometimes better things or a nicer car, but so like there's something to be said about just like sitting in your place and just being like, man, like this is cool, like if this is all I got, this is cool.
Hmm.
And because it puts you in a perspective, dude. And some advice if you ever wanted it from me, because I know we're just friends.
Always.
So,
Yeah.
man, go through that asset journey of just stacking assets. I
Hmm.
mean, Brittany and I went through that probably at about, well, I was probably about 32 when we started making like pretty good money. And it was just sitting there. And I'd always make my decision to like, when I'm 80, am I going to be glad that I signed up for this debt? Meaning like more debt for me to live a cooler life. And I
Yeah.
always would veer off the other way and be like, no, let's just buy like another rental or let's
Hmm.
buy another rental. So I looked at it as like, hey, like just have more and more assets, get more and more cash flow and stop worrying so much about like the car I'm in or the personal house I'm in. And just note that like getting to a spot where you're just peaceful is like, I think one of probably the biggest flexes out there. But what's interesting is that flex is so internal. So I didn't say that in a braggadocious way. That flex is internal, meaning like you're flexing on yourself with
Yeah.
just peace because no one can see your assets or whatever you have. So like if that's a flex in your mind, it's only and it's like when you can wake up every day and know like, hey, like things are good.
It's a
Uh
blessing and a curse, man. One of my best friends that I've known since high school, we just reconnected recently in like the last six months to a year. And like I go back to me just being a perfectionist. And I'm always like, because like when we were at the prime of the market, I actually missed out on a house up by like DC Ranch, and I look back now and I'm like that would have caused so much stress. And I'm always talking to him like I got to figure out how to get to the next level. Like all the guys I'm working with are doing better than me, and he's like, hey man, he's like, look where you're at. He goes, we grew
yeah.
up in Greyhawk. He goes, you got two dogs, you're married, you got your house is remodeled, you're the youngest guy in your street, like he's like, I would love to be where you're at. And I'm like, it
Yeah.
always pulls me back. And like, he just humbles me. And like all of my friends from high school kind of say the same thing. Not that I'm like doing better than them or anything. We're all kind of at the same level, but it's like, you did what you wanted to do. Like if you look back 10 years ago, you'd be very proud of where you're at now.
Yeah.
But the blessing is like keep staying hungry. I want
Yeah.
to get better every year.
Yeah. No, like
I always want to challenge
when
myself.
we were texting the other day, I was like, dude, I don't even think I owned a house at 28, bro. Like, I'm being serious. I was like, I
Yeah.
don't even think I owned a place at 20. I think it was like in between 27 and 29, I think it was my first spot. And it was like this little condo.
Hmm.
And so I'm just like, yeah, man, give yourself props. I mean, you told me some other stuff that I won't talk about on here as far as like what you have. And I was like,
Yeah.
dude, like like that's a lot of people don't have that, man. So just give yourself props. But dude, it's just it's the way you're wired. How are you managing that? Because like I said, I'm the same way. Like it doesn't matter what I could look at every metric today in my life, business, and everything else, and I would still look at that with where am I going wrong? Like why?
Dude,
Like
funny you asked
why
that. I
is
love
that?
that question.
Why
I
is
love
that?
that, dude. I love that question because like I'm big into like reading these books and like being in these big rooms and these people that are just killing it in life, right? And you know the cliche saying of like surround yourself with the successful and you'll become successful. I've always like recently like took that into a mindset perspective. So like I've recently been hanging out with like old friends that like are really happy, like they have fun and stuff like that. And I can just see like even if they quote unquote have less on paper, they're much happier. They have fun. They don't have any of the amount of stress that we have, but probably live longer than us. They're healthy. And I think it's just a mix of both of those. Like I love the days when I can just like do nothing with some of my old friends, or like even if we just like go on a small trip together or something. And then I love being in rooms like this week we're going to Park City with like the top agents in the country. Like I can't wait for that. So it's a mix of it where like I'm going to get to that next level, but I also know I can have a weekend with my boys and not beat myself up, as long as you're smart about it. I think that's the biggest thing that's helped me.
Yeah, it's just it's a wild personality that I give our wives props
Yeah.
for being around because I like my wife sometimes I look at that situation and I mean I'm actually very peaceful like in my personal life. But like when I walk into my office, there's just something about it where
Yeah.
it's just I look at metrics every morning and it can be so taxing and exhausting, but yet awkwardly motivating.
Yeah.
And you're just wondering, you're just like, man, this isn't probably meant for everybody to like look at their situation every morning and just judge themselves every morning and
Yeah.
not give yourselves props more than probably you should. And
Yeah.
other people would probably already be like, I gotta take off for the next few weeks. And I'm just like, nah, I've earned, I'm in my office, like, I've earned nothing. Nobody owes me nothing, It's like, like, every day, just like, no one owes me nothing. I like literally walk in my office almost every day and say, nobody owes me anything. Just
Dude, my
trying to put myself
biggest
in this place of you're owed nothing. Like, just
oh
get to
yeah.
work and get gritty and go find, like, tomorrow didn't roll in today. Like just because you won last Sunday on the field doesn't mean you walk on and this Sunday they're like, "Ooh, well, it's Tom Brady. He wins again." He's like, "Nope, still got to earn it." There's still a I look at it like there's still a defense out there that's
Oh,
trying to take my lunch. So it's like I just look at it everything that way.
I'm so happy you brought up our wives because like that, I think that's been the number one thing that helped me. Like me and her are like polar opposites when it comes to like certain mindset things, but
Yeah.
like we have so much other things in common. Like so she's a probation officer, right? She leaves every day with her bulletproof vest and her gun, like completely different lifestyle than me. She'll be gone for 12 hours in this heat, just drenched in sweat, comes home on cloud nine. Like she is so passionate about this job. Like that's probably one of the reasons like we're gonna wait to have kids for a little bit because like you can't work that job being pregnant. So like that's how passionate she is about it. And just like seeing that, like the government doesn't compensate you. Like she should be making quadruple what she's making. It doesn't phase her. She doesn't care about money. She doesn't care about the benefits. She's helping these like it's juvenile probation, so it's all these kids under 18. She's help every day. She's like, I just helped this kid. They all look at her as like a sister, and I just see this fire in her eyes, and I'm like, and she's literally told me, she's like, if we lost everything and I still had this job and we had to go back to our apartment or whatever, she's like, I'd be just as happy. And I'm like, such a different perspective because like I'll have like a slow week and I'm like beating myself up.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I think it's just being around more of that kind of mindset to be like, this is humbling.
It is. It's refreshing. I think
It is refreshing.
that's why our wives we all need to go out and do a dinner so
Hmm.
I can meet her and you can meet my wife. But yeah, it's so I look at Brittany sometimes and it's just so like she's so like pure.
Yeah.
I'm just like, man, like you're not constantly thinking of a deal and you're not constantly thinking of money and you're not like you don't like she doesn't stack her wins the same way I do. So like I mean, you know me, I always talk about like stacking wins, like go out today and stack wins. And like it's so cool to see like stacking wins can be like she gives her time, you know, and she plans the party and she's the one that gives probably more. And she's like she's calling my nieces and nephews and like, hey, come over.
Mhm.
And so you realize, like, I think that's like God put you, you know, it's like
Yeah.
God put you guys together because like hey, like these two people, like, you know, if you're in a life where you need, like, you want a lot of relationships and love, and there's also a cool life with a lot of money. I mean,
Hmm.
you blend those two together and they figure out how to like love each other and help each other manage their emotions. Like, you get the best of both worlds. Like, they're the planners and let's go do this vacation and let's spend time and do this. And then we're over there, like, in the office, like, we got to stack cash, we got to stack, you know, so it's like we can fund the mission, right? Because the missions aren't free. But and I'm glad we brought this up because you know I feel like when I'm talking to you, and that's what I love about a few of the people that you and I roll with. What's what I respect about? I've told Brittany this many times. I respect the few people I hang out with that they're like 10 years younger than me,
Hmm.
but they like have happy, like they like actually have genuinely like happy lives and they love their wives. And every time I've been with you guys have always talked about your guys' wives in like a super loving way. Where
Hmm.
like you're used to like, you know, it's like the stereotypical like dudes, like if you're gonna grab a beer with somebody and like they were just gonna sit there and like talk crap, you
Hmm.
know, or talk about other women or whatever. And I'm like, no, like that's not my circle. Like the second you start doing that around me, like we're done. Like if you think like I'm gonna be that,
Oh, I'm the same way.
if you
Yeah.
think I'm gonna be that dude, no, like we're gonna talk internally. And if there's something going wrong, like let's pray about it, let's talk about it. Like how can we be proactive to solve this? This is something that we, you know. So like I just love like that about you guys that you're so like passionate about your guys' like marriages and even like how we internally talk about it together when they're not there. And that's I just love that because I you can see so much about person on what they do. Because I was out the other day and someone made this joke, like this is just like man's joke, and I'm just
Yeah.
like looking at him like, dude, you're a tool. Like I won't even laugh at your stupid joke. Like I'm not even giving into that. Like that's not how I live my life. That's not how you should live your life. And I'm not cool with it. And he knew that just by the look in my eye. Like I ain't participating in this conversation. We're done. So
My problem is I try to be like a hero too much. Like when I see that, because like I'm not trying to sound egotistical, but like I think my marriage is as good as it gets, and like
yeah,
I want everyone to witness that, you know, same with yours. And so like when I see either my friends in like bad relationships or like they're talking like that, it's like you're wasting so much like life. Like find that partner or like find someone that you can click with and
yeah,
create that partnership. Sometimes everyone's trying to find the perfect person. Like Nicole and I, like we've known each other for 10 years. And I remember one time, like, because we met each other at her parents' restaurants, Jalapeno Inferno. And like we were friends, like we were both in different relationships. And I remember like I would be like, I never would date a girl like that. And then like we started becoming friends after we both went through a breakup. And then we dated one day and like she just completely changed because we kind of just were our mindsets kind of mushed together. And now, like every year, we mature together, and we don't have to worry about like that part of life. Now we can just worry on the building part. So, like when I see people like complaining or like not in that mindset, like I go into like you got to get there because
yeah,
like so much more on the other side. Like you know how much you can build with two people. Like it's just not helping with real estate, but just coming home and like I can be completely relaxed and I'm stressed about some stupid little thing and the way she views it is completely like people have it so much worse. I'm like, all right, well, you just saved me 3 hours of stress just by your mindset. It's like you guys got to get to that. You don't have to force it, but like know what you want and start building, you know?
yeah. No, I totally get it, man. That's awesome to hear. You can tell you're happy on that topic, and I really like that about our crew. And it says like a lot about people and how they talk about their spouse. And
Yeah.
so I respect you for that. So what um what are you looking forward to probably the most in real estate over the next 6 months? Like what's
Dude,
got you like waking up like feeling good?
the biggest thing that's been a change for me since I've kind of went on spread my wings and done my own thing is like my mindset has changed so much. It's gotten so this is probably the most clear I've been as far as like focus, mindset. I'm super dedicated in the gym right now. Like I don't miss a day. I go twice a day, preparing for like a half marathon. And it's just when you focus on building yourself, which I've learned like from you and like trusting the process, and like my dad teaches me this a lot, and like not worrying about the outcome every day, just things start rolling in. Like
Yeah.
my confidence is going up, my stress is completely lower. And when you have both of those, you can perform 10 times better. So I'm confident, like now we're getting into these rooms, like this event we're going to. I know all the systems I need. I'm working on hiring a partner who's going to help me with the areas that I struggle in, like the back end stuff. I'd rather be negotiating and in the front lines. That's how I know I can buy back my time,
Yeah.
learning all those things. And like the books that you're sending me, I've been reading a bunch of books lately, but the mindset that I've already seen just in like my first 6 months, knowing where that's going to be by the time I'm in my 30s, I'm most excited about that.
Dude, that buy back your time, man.
Insane.
That book is good.
Hmm.
I actually like the book because I read it not that long ago and I was already, living that book in most ways. So it just was, it was just reinforcing just some frameworks. Dude, I'm gonna tell you, double down on that. Knowing you,
Hmm.
like double down on that more than ever. Just keep going that way. You can build something. Everybody, like so many people in real estate always just want to be like, I got to do everything. I got to do everything. I got to do everything.
That was me.
And some think that like they're actually the best at everything, and that's
Yeah.
another story because I'm like, whoa,
I
like
don't even think
really the
that.
best at everything? That's crazy. But then some people are just like, they just don't know how to have like they don't know how to just delegate and
Yeah.
how to like put systems in place where they just manage the process but don't know all the details. And I will raise my hand first that was an art that I had to figure out. I got in
Oh,
everybody, dude,
it's
I
not
got
easy.
everybody's lane every day in my company.
Yeah.
I would get in that person's lane and that person's lane. And I remember they got to a point, bro, where they told me to not join my team meetings. Like I'm the basically the I'm the producer, right? So like my team's different than most teams. Like it's not a team where I give leads. Like I'm the agent on the deal, and I have people around me that help me get the deal done so that I
Yeah.
can keep the most profits. And like so I get on that meeting, and it was to go over all of our deals and what's going on, and they were just we kind of got to the point where they're like, hey, dude, like no, like you're good. Like you bring these 9 o'clock meetings, you get up at like 5, you come in here on like you're revved up on like level 9 on of 10 levels, and we're just like they're just starting their day, like getting on Zoom, like, hey everybody,
Yeah.
how are you? I'm already on like been to the gym, cold plunge,
Yeah.
already like went to battle for an hour with myself in the office. I'm coming in like, all right, what are we doing? Where are we going? Why did you not do this? And they were just like, whoa, simmer down. And so I realized, like, even as the captain of the ship, sometimes the captain of the ship, like you've got to have people around you that can tell you what's up and know they won't get fired for it.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, they're just like, dude, no, like we're gonna do our meetings and we will fill you in on anything that you needed to know. And they don't call me on anything.
I love
No, it's
that.
like but
That's
it's
what you
dude,
want.
it's so challenging though. And I'm giving you some advice because I know this is what we talk about a lot. So anybody out there who's listening, I'm not just like giving everybody advice all day. Like we do this actually regularly, whether we're on the phone or in person. So that's why we're talking like this, just recording it for the public to hear. But like I would say, just start doing that, and then I'll start helping you with how to get these metrics. Because like really, if you think about it, it's like you need customer to call you, and you need a happy client, and you need a great review, and you need them to rave about
Hmm.
your company,
Yeah.
right? Or
Hmm.
you still, or you. So, but that's how I look at it now. And there's all these things in the middle. There's consultation, showing homes, listing the property, putting it on the MLS, getting people into the house, super lock boxes,
Yeah.
signs, Benzers, spuds. But I didn't say any of that, right? So there's them calling you
Yeah.
to do a business. There's a closing, and they need to be super happy. They need
Hmm.
to give you a good review and then go rave about you.
Yeah.
And then what's even cooler is when they rave about you, when they start leaving the reviews and they're like, hey, we loved working with Nolan and it's all your assistants in your office, and you're just like, no way. Like this person literally left a review and named 3 people in my office with me in there. And sometimes you get a review and your name ain't even in there, and you're like, okay, like come on, like at least still put my name in there, right? It just shows you, bro, like how you can actually start building something.
Yeah.
And if you just focus on someone calling you, happy client, good review, they refer you. And so you start looking at that. How do they refer you? It's all those systems that we're setting up in your business right now so that they call you back and they don't hire another realtor in 4 years.
Yeah.
And so, but all that stuff in the middle, I'm not saying that someone doesn't have to do it. It's just you can keep figuring out how to buy back your time and buy people's time that are actually better than you at it. Like there is someone better at checking your emails, and there's someone better at writing realtor descriptions on the MLS. Because if they were my descriptions, it'd be like 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, and a roof
Yeah.
in North Phoenix.
Yeah.
Like with the like my descriptions are like 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, backyard, 2 car garage, corner lot. Cool. Sell it. Bye. Right. And like they write this beautiful, like in
100%.
your luxurious backyard. And so it just shows you like you can actually have people that do it much better than you and still get like a process. So like I can't, I'm so stoked for your journey to go on this because most people aren't willing to accept it. And they either can't fund the mission, which I know you can fund it, or they just can't go to the level of like the control.
Dude, it's
And
the best analogy you gave me. I think I bring this up all the time is the doctor's office or I'll use the dentist office because I just went through this. My last dentist had like a receptionist and it was him. Like I think he was the one texting me for appointments and all that stuff. And like, yeah, he was decently good. I'd go in and be kind of like unorganized, all that. The new one I go to is actually in Greyhawk. He's got assistants, he's got like a texting system, everything's dialed in, it goes right in my calendar. When I go in, I see his like 3 receptionists who give me the whole breakdown, and then I see the whatever the person is that does the flossing and the cleaning. I rarely see him. And like I think most people are like they want obviously we're the dentist or the doctor, right? And most people are like, well, the client's gonna get mad because they never see me. I respect him because I know how dialed in he is. I don't need him flossing me. I
yep.
need him to fill my cavity or like give me new teeth if I get my teeth
Mm-hmm.
knocked out.
High
You know, so
level.
it's like, and I know if I call the office, I'm not talking to him. You know, some people are like, well, I can't have a showing agent show these homes, or I can't have somebody else answering the phone. People respect that. You
Yeah.
know that you're dialed in, and if it's like if they're getting what they need and updates, even if the updates are from your assistant, you got the systems dialed in. If a fire happens or shit hits the fan, you're going to be there to step in. You've
Yeah.
made that clear.
Yeah.
And I think once I had that perspective, I'm like, that's my ultimate goal. You know,
Dude,
because I don't want to deal with all that little crap.
and what's next level, dude, is when you get to a point where you start making expectations of a process,
Mhm.
knowing that you're not the one who has to do them. You
Yeah.
actually start building better customer service. Like when you take out a Google Doc and say, when we get a listing every single time, this
Mhm.
is what we do. And
Yep.
if you did that for yourself and then got busy, you might skirt around some things. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you got 4 listings today and it was just you doing them, you might
Yeah.
be like, oh, okay, like I'm not going to send out the thank you card to them. But, like you're going to do the bare minimum, like get it on the market, get the sign up, get the lockbox on. But like it's all that how to build a cool company, like getting them over like a thank you card and thanking them for their business, and then doing this special touch of reaching out to the referring party who referred you the business. So like
Yeah.
when you write these checklists, you start writing it from like the expectations of this won't I'm not writing this as if like I don't have enough time. I'm writing this as like what should a customer get in
Yeah.
a world where like hours are not like it's just a to-do list. Like this is what has to be done, and you start writing them that way, and then you hand it off to somebody and you're like, whoa, like every time this
Yeah.
happens, like every time a deal comes through, they've got to do all of this. And then you start getting addicted to going out and getting business because you don't have to take care of everything. So it's like relieving.
Yeah.
And then you start getting to the point where you start writing down better list of what has to be done because you're the business owner and you know how to give good customer service, and you just keep giving these to people, and you're just like, whoa, like they're actually giving better customer service to that
100%.
person because it's not contingent on a busy day. Like if someone's a solo agent,
Mhm.
like it's their service that day is contingent on whether or not they're busy or not. Like if you're in 5 appointments that day and a client's calling you, you might not, they might call you at 9 and leave you a voicemail. And if you're a busy day,
Yeah.
you might not call them back till that night. Or
Hmm.
like if you have someone
Yeah.
in the office, like that client calls in and your office answers because you're in appointments and they answer that question. So like it's ultimately like they're getting better service by having people watch specific things. And so
Yeah.
I'm really like excited for that journey that you're going on.
And like going back to like when I said I love ROI on like brain power and peace of mind and stuff, that person, it's better than one brain is multiple brains. That one person is in that specific field all day, every day. So they're going to come up with ideas that they can implement to make things better. I'm not going to have the brain power to do that. I'm just barely doing it just so I can get to the next task. And that's the thing I love about our crew over here too, is like, not only am I going to have my crew that's trying to make things better for me, all these other crews are doing the same thing, and then we
Yep.
get on every week and show what's working and what's not. So it's like
Yep.
that just saved me 100 hours of brain damage trying to figure out what's the best way to address this, when we could all just work together. Not only are you buying back your time, but you're buying back so many headaches, which I
Yep.
don't think people put enough emphasis on or weight on or value on, because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, like that's what keeps you, I guess, passionate. Like they say, like if you're passionate about what you're doing, you're not really working.
Yeah.
That's the goal. Like everyone's trying to find their dream job. It's like, no, find the one you're good at and what you can make you money, and make it at your passion, make it
Yeah.
enjoyable. That's how you become successful, in my opinion.
Yeah, dude, go on that journey. It's so rewarding. I know before we started recording, like I just told you my day yesterday, and
Yeah.
it was just like the most beautiful day. And I worked like 3 hours, and I'm not, I mean, a lot of work that got to get there.
Yeah.
I always want to mention like a lot of work to get there, but dude, so worth it. You're just like, you just got all these moving parts. And I look at like yesterday was most people's like 3 weeks of work.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's because you're like, Kylie's doing what she's got to do. And my wife's doing what she's got to do for her company. And Christy's doing what she's got to do. And Nathan's out showing homes. And, there's overhead and there's salaries, but it's just like, oh, it's beautiful, because it's like you can keep working your whole life more and more and more and more hours to make money. But like the art is figuring out like, how do you get a day done where you just can smile and say like, hey, that was a good day, right? Like I don't have to like do everything to make more money. This isn't all about just making more money. Like we're living a life. Like like this is a life. Why we're like trying to make money. We actually are losing days of being young.
So I have a question
I
for
take that
you that I
seriously.
think
Yeah.
I think most people have when you just brought all that up. Like, I think the reason people don't scale and leverage is because like they do have all that overhead. You have four people to pay. Yeah, you had a good day yesterday. What happens if there's a slow month and you still have to pay all these people? How do you view that in your mind?
Yeah, so I have a different perspective, I think, just because my parents ran a huge company. They ran a roofing company, and so
Hmm.
they had like 80 employees. And so 80 employees, and they roofed like DR Hortons, Fulton, William Lyons. Like they roofed a lot of the builders' homes. So it was very like transactional, right? Like those builders are transactional, where like if you just go to Nolan's house and roof his house, that's more relationship, right? Like
Yeah.
they were very transactional. And so I saw, dude, like my perspective of taxes was different at 14. Like I saw my parents' tax bills. Like it was obnoxious. So like I already knew like, okay, like I've got to have like an account. When I was just starting, I knew I had to have like an accountant out the gate, take care of my tax because I'd seen it. Their company had $1 million monthly invoices, bills that they had to pay, so like it's really perspective because my mom and I talk all the time and I tell her, I'm like, dude, my company is like peanuts to what you had to deal with. Meaning like you had 85 employees, like $1 million, like in bill, like a lot of stuff, moving parts just to get all the stuff that had to happen. Forklifts had to get out here and they have to roof it and there's leaks and you have builders calling you and barking at you. So when
Hmm.
I walk into my office and I'm like, I don't even buy the product to put on the shelf. I broker it,
Yeah.
So it's like I look at what I have to do. So that's perspective. And I just saw what uh can happen. And I'll give you one story. So my parents in that roofing company, one thing that I really took in is they made a lot of their wealth in just a few years, meaning they always made very, very good incomes owning their business, but they made majority of like their money during a certain era. It was when like the building blew up in like 2006, 2009, that the era, like
Hmm.
when building was just happening like crazy. And I remember when the market crashed, right? When the market crashed, builders stopped building. So they went through like a few years of not like it wasn't good times. And my mom would tell me because I'd be like, she had this overhead, right? And I would ask her, I'm like, oh, like let some people go, like,
Yeah.
and she's like, no, Chris, because I've built a business that gave me really, really, really good profits. And I was smart with my money and didn't spend it. She just didn't spend it. Smart with her money. She's like, so what do I do? You let everyone go. And then what happens, Chris? There's cycles. So what do I let everyone go? And then I go, what do I go roof it?
Yeah.
What am I going to go roof it tomorrow? Cause we're slower. And then she's like, then when the market starts coming back again, I got to go rehire 85 people. So
Mhm.
she was just used to like, hey, like there are times that are better and there are times that are worse. Even though you're still making a profit, there are times that are better and there are times that are worse. And if you're in a business for 40 years and you own it, there will always be like in 40 years, dude, when we look back, we're going to be like, there were times where we made more profits and there are times when we made less.
Mhm.
So I'm just looking at it as like, I just want to, but in that 40 years, there's times where you make more money and there's times where you make less. I want to look at that as like life's going on that chart. And I still want to figure out how to just live my life the same way, whether there's more money being made or less money being made. So I think it's the art of it is really, dude, is like just getting to a point where you've learned how to um, um, save to give yourself your own peace of mind.
It's like reverse dollar cost averaging pretty much.
You just gotta like
Or if I'm spending.
have enough where you save, right? That you have enough in your brain that you could say like, hey, if I had a bad month, 2 months, 5 months, 3 years, like as business owners, that's not just like as markets change, you just change with them. Meaning like, this is what my wife helped me out with the most is I'm drastic. So like 8 months ago when the market started shifting and getting slower, I'm the person who's like,
Get rid
I'm
of everything.
drastic. I'm like, cut it all. And
Yeah.
she's my rational one that's like, wait, like let's look at a P&L next month. Let's look at a P&L the next month. Let's look at like let's go a quarter and then make a decision.
Yeah.
And by golly, just
Yep.
because we had a slow week and I'm burning down the ships, right? And she's like, hey, let's keep our ships. And then 3 months goes by, and what happened?
And now you'd be having to stress about finding new ships.
Yes. So that's it. So like literally, like it was my wife probably because I'm drastic. I make bold decisions, good or bad. And
Mhm.
she was like, hey, let's go 90 days on this. And I'm glad we went 90 days because like the market all like actually I'm just as busy as I was back then. And so
Mhm.
it's like, if you just lived on this, oh, bad month or bad week or bad day, like you actually you start maturing as a business owner where you stop looking at things in days,
Yeah.
you stop looking at things in weeks. You almost start getting to a point where you stop looking at things in months. Then you
Mhm.
get to the next level where I'm trying to get to like you look at things in quarters. Then I think you look at things in years where you just start looking at it and saying, I've made decisions for this year and that's what we're doing. Like there's
Mhm.
no like these course correcting throughout because we're emotionally nervous. It's like that's my business. It's a business. It's a serious one. We have checkpoints. We talk, and then yes, at maybe every quarter we talk about something and we figure out what we need to do. But she got me into this whole like roller coaster of like just because 4 days weren't the best doesn't mean like our whole life isn't the best.
Yeah.
And I'm super thankful for her because like I've had so many. If people saw our reality show of us sitting at our kitchen island, there's mornings where she's like, okie dokie, like she's just getting up, and I'm like, we gotta do this, we gotta do this, and she's like, how about you go
Yeah.
to the gym, you
You
cold
need that.
plunge, you get yourself put together, and then like let's
Yeah.
start over.
Go
So
for a walk,
I hope
dude.
that helped. I mean,
No,
but dude,
100%. I think it
oh,
makes it so much more fun too. Like this job is taxing, dude. It's easy to beat yourself up. Like there's days where you can have a slow day and you're like, do I even deserve to be an agent and stuff like that? But like this is the first time I know my career is short, but like I know I had a lot of fun at my old brokerages, but this is the first time I'm like super excited about like my
yeah,
5 to 10 year plan because like it's up to me. I mean, I can scale it as much as I want and I know what to do. And that's like the biggest thing I've learned too, like moving forward is like, I'm only going to take advice and learn from people who are actually doing it. Like I interviewed with all of the top brokerages when I was trying to figure out where to go. And everyone tells you what you want to hear. They all have great ideas. They all have good work ethic and like promise you all this stuff. But like at this point, I'm gonna do it with everything in life, as far as trades or like hiring people or where I go, what do I buy? Like people who actually can show results and you can see that life balance is there as far as their mental and their income and their success. Like that's, I mean, what other proof is that? You know,
Yeah.
you're really gonna go to a gym and hire the fattest trainer? Like you're gonna get the most ripped guy, you know,
Yeah.
you're not gonna get the out of shape doctor who's a cardiologist. You know, you want
Yep.
somebody who's showing the proof and is still doing it. That's why I
Yeah.
like it. Yeah.
For sure. And to answer and like kind of go a little bit deeper too on that conversation of how do you deal with the overhead? Is it's a thermostat, bro. Like
Hmm.
it's a thermostat, meaning when you have one employee and it's 4,000 a month, it seems so big to you right now. Dude, if I had $4,000 a month in overhead, I'd just be like, what? Like that's like almost zero,
Yeah.
right? But for you right now, it might mean everything.
Hmm.
And then, but that it's a thermostat. So you turn that thermostat up just a little bit. You live that life for 6 months. You see the ROI on it, and you're like, whoa! Like, and you talking about like your work life, personal balance, and being happy. You start realizing, you're like, okay, I paid 4,000 this month, and I made like 26,000 more just because I
Hmm.
had someone helping me, and I was happier.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you're getting busier and busier because you're happier, right? When you're like being serious, like when you're happier, you get busier. There's nothing around that. Like it is how it is. It's called flow state. If you're having
Hmm.
a fun day, you're gonna get more work. And then all of a
100%.
sudden, you're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna bring on someone else. And then now it's $8,000 a month. And
Yeah.
but the thermostat, you just ticked it, tick, 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 you ticked it up. You get a little bit awkward, and you're just like, ooh. And then you're like, okay, that eight now brings in $67,000 and you're busier, like meaning on paper, you're selling more homes, but you're like, my day is not the same. Still going in the morning to the gym, still doing that, still going on my walk, still off by five, still have my weekends, still have my evenings. And you're like, okay. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, and then it starts coming into a game and you're like, can I just do another one? And
Yeah.
can I do another one? And so it's really thermostat. So like you going to fourth, like you doing your first employee is going to be the same feeling as if like I had six employees right now. I don't, but if I
Hmm.
did, I'd get nervous, just like you probably with one employee. So it's like we could have the same feeling. Our thermostats are just different, and it's why some people make $40,000 a year, and there's some people that make $19 million a year. Like they're just their thermostats are different. Like they didn't go from here to here overnight. They lived this lifestyle and loved it, and then they're like, I want to make $1 million a year, and they loved it. They make $6 million a year, and they loved it. They just keep they're not getting any busier, and they're actually getting more money, and they're going on more vacations, and they're actually starting to. They have such big lives around them that other people manage for them that they just start getting to a point of like unrelatable would
Yeah.
probably be the biggest thing is just unrelatable. So you're on a cool path, bro. So
Love
um
perspective.
yeah, so we went kind of long, bro. And I know, like I said, this was a little bit of a you know, I just like want obviously the listeners know that like this is just how we I feel like we just had like what a normal phone conversation would have been like, or like if we'd have went out to eat, this would have been a normal conversation that we just pushed record on.
I like these, bro. Yeah, this will probably be more viral than the Elon Musk Joe Rogan podcast,
I,
don't you think? This
I
episode?
really think this is gonna be the one that puts both you and I on the map. Where like in
Yeah.
6 years we're gonna look back and be like, that was it, man. That was
Yeah.
it. Like that's the starting of that was the starting of it all. That was the starting of
No,
it
I
all.
love
But
it. I'll do more of these, bro. This is awesome.
yeah, dude, I'm excited to see everything that you're doing, man. I appreciate you jumping on the show. And I will see you on a flight tomorrow morning. We're going to Park City. Is that in Utah?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
cool.
definitely
I
Utah.
don't know how a map works. So
Dude, you gotta cut that out.
Brittany, we show up and I have fun. So well, cool,
I'll
man.
be 30 rows behind you
Whatever.
in the econ seats.
Dude, get out of here. I just started affording first
I'll
class
come
last
walk up
year.
and say hi. Steal some
Okay.
peanuts.
I'll throw you a steak.
Cool, bro.
I
Thanks
don't
again. That was awesome.
later, Nolan. Bye,
I'll
bud.
talk to you soon. Bye.